Let's have a look at how we can enable and configure the query store.
Let's have a look inside the database to see if we already have a query store, and we'll see in the T-SQL database there's no query store node at the moment. So the first thing I want to do is to set the query store on for this database. So auto database T-SQL set the query store on, and then if I refresh in here, we'll see that we now have a query store node. We can also clear the query store in case it's got any information in it already. So just auto database T-SQL set query store clear. We'll execute this, and that's cleared out query store. So if there were a query store already, we could clear it using that. We can also change some settings for our query store. And what I'm going to do here is set the interval length to 1 minute and the flush interval to 60 seconds. That's really because I want to do a relatively short demonstration. So we want to have very short intervals for the query store, but it could be useful to change it on a production system as well. We can also have a look at the properties of our T-SQL database, and we have a query store in the properties, and we can see this is on read write, and we can see the flush interval as well in here. So there's information you can get about the query store, and you can configure the query store from here. Now let's create a query to track in here. So we'll execute this, and it will run for 60 minutes. And then if we have a look at our tracked queries, just refresh this, and we can see that it's tracking queries in there. Now I want to increase the size of the storage for the query store. Again, we can change that in the configuration, so we can set the maximum storage size. We could generate quite a large size for this. And then I want to go and have a look at the overall resource consumption, and we're just going to reconfigure this, and we just want to have a look rather than the last month, which might be more useful in many scenarios. We just want to look at the last hour, and we can see the queries that have been running, that we're running now. The next thing I'm going to do is have a look at the top resource consuming queries. And we're going to change the metric for this, and you see there's lots of different things you can use, CPU time and so on. We want to look at execution count in here, and we can see the highest queries in here. Let's have a look at these ones. This one here, this is a select statement I'm particularly interested in. If I hover over this, I can see it has a query ID of 36 in here. Now let's have a look at the tracked queries, and we can enter 36 in here for that query we were interested in, and we can see the query plan for this. So the query store is very useful because this is storing historical information, and we can get our plans about long-running queries or frequently run queries, costly queries from our system, and we can have a look at the plans, have a look at what they were doing, potentially have a look at more information about them as well. So we've got information about all the different objects that are used. You could choose whether to change things. You can choose to force plans as well. So you can actually choose that whenever a query is run, it can be forced to use a particular plan in here, and you can compare plans. There's large amounts of information you can get from here. So the query store is a really, really useful tool to analyze performance of your system and to check that it's running at optimum performance levels.